Renergen announced exciting news and a big update regarding their funding for the Phase 2 helium LNG development. And this is really big. It's from Ivanhoe Mines Limited that becomes a 4.35% shareholder in Renergen. And this is a strategic investment for the long term that opens many doors for Renergen, and it's very exciting. So let's have a listen to what Stefano Morani, Renergen's CEO, has to say about this and what it means for the long-term potential for Renergen, as well as some other updates and news regarding Renergen and the helium globally. It's quite exciting. Stay tuned till the end for lots of information and valuable information. Just before that, the FinMeUp app is close to launching. Our mission is to clear the way to financial independence for our community. If you haven't joined our community, the link is in the description for that. We also have an early bird list as our new FinMeUp app is extremely close to launching. You're going to have so much value from that, from information from industry experts, as well as the FinMeUp team, who's working incredibly hard to create as much value for you. So the link is in the description. Stay tuned for more. Let's have a listen to Renergen's CEO. Hi everyone, today we are with Stefano Morani, the CEO from Renergen, and they recently announced exciting news. So Stefano, over to you. What is this big announcement, and what does it mean for Renergen now as well as the future of Renergen? We'd love to know more.
So it means a few things. In the first instance, it is a path to securing all of the funding necessary for Phase 2. The second thing you'll notice in the announcement that we talk about a 120-day due diligence period to fully size what a Phase 2 could look like. And I come back to the point that if you had to look at the geology in some of the previous presentations that we put out there, a Phase 2 at the moment contemplates only using about 40 to 50% of our 2P reserves. And all of the P reserves are only 14% of the total production right. So that means that there's potentially a lot more gas down there. And if there's potentially a lot more gas down there, then this is potentially a lot bigger than we'd been planning. And so having a partner like Ivanhoe come into the fray with Robert Friedland, whose reputation precedes him, it really does put us on a completely different trajectory. And then obviously, Robert Friedland does have the Midas touch, and pretty much every company that he's ever been involved in has benefited from that. And we're very excited in working with him. If you look at the strategic tie-up between the companies, obviously, firstly, they're involved in certain critical minerals, but secondly, they also have a huge project here in South Africa, an enormous one, Ivanplats, and it is going to need an inordinate amount of energy. And that's where a tie-up like this makes a huge amount of sense.
Okay, and that's great news. So, obviously we knew that for Phase 2, it's going to require lots and lots of funding. And part of that SENS announcement was that there's a lot of de-risking happening because of this investment. So can you just elaborate a bit more on that?
Mm-hmm. So obviously Ivanhoe has taken the first strategic stake now, just shy of 5%, about 4.35%. We're going to work through the shareholder approvals for them increasing their stake up to 25% through the issuance of new shares. But importantly, this is done at the market-related price as opposed to a predetermined price. In other words, Ivanhoe is very happy to walk this road along with other shareholders. And if the share price doubles or the share price triples, then so be it. That's what they're paying for the shares, which I think is a very fair deal from someone in that position. And then obviously the final transaction gives them the ability to increase up to 55%, but again at a market-related price as opposed to a predetermined price, which again just goes to show that this is a partner that you want to walk a journey with as opposed to someone who's going to lock the entire thing up.
Very exciting. And how does this tie in with the short-term other news? So for example, the commercialization, what's the updates on that, or updates on the group as a general?
So we are A, in a closed period, B, in a quarter for the ASX. And so I'm busy working on my quarterly report. I don't want to go and waste all of my powder for that. So I'm going to plead the fifth on all of that.
Perfect. So just back on the big investment, how much funding was expected to be required for the completion of phase two? And, what is the significance of the investment? If I read and remember correctly, it's quite a big portion around, it was at around 35 Rand per share on the JSE they invested in. And it was how many shares was it again that they invested in or acquired?
It works out about 4.35%. So it's 5.6 million shares that they took at a little bit over 35 Rand a share.
Okay, so let's say that's around 140 million Rand. How big significance?
No, so hold on. It's about 201 million Rand, 200.6 million Rand.
Okay, so how big an impact does that have on current shareholders' concerns of potential dilution and further funding requirements?
I think if anything, this is an enormous de-risking event. And yeah, it's one thing for a company to go out and raise as much capital as we needed to raise without a strategic investor on board. But having a strategic investor on board who's going to allow the share price to appreciate and only invest at the higher share price signals to the market, as I said, this is a long-term partnership and this is a major de-risking event for the company. Yeah, we could not have written a better script for this.
Okay, awesome. And will they help with potential international expansion? Because obviously they are from offshore. So how will this strategic investment also help with the international expansion and partnerships?
Look, Robert is a big thinker. He's a very, very, very big thinker. He's and the two teams have been working incredibly well together. So without preempting anything, I think first things first, we need to do the work for the next 120 days, size phase two appropriately, get on with getting the construction contracts in place for phase two, get phase one operational, and then from there we can look at global domination. But for now there's a lot of work to do before we start global domination.
Yeah, awesome. And just with regards to global supply at the moment, what is the current situation for helium supply globally?
Pardon my language, Jena does gak. It's really bad. It is really, really bad. So the Russian plant is down. The BLM is down. Australia stopped producing in 2020. Actually, most of the plants are down. Qatar is down for unscheduled maintenance. That really left Exxon and Algeria. And over the weekend, Algeria went down. And the reason that Algeria went down is because in order to supply more LNG to Europe, they needed to bypass the helium liquefiers. They can't run both. And so in order to get more energy into Europe, that's meant that the Algerian helium liquefiers are now down, which means that literally Exxon is the last man standing producing liquid. All of the rest produce gaseous helium. And so, yeah, I've heard anecdotal evidence to suggest from credible people who are broking helium spot trades in Texas that right now only gaseous helium is being traded because there is no more liquid. And remember that gaseous trades at about a third of the price of liquid. Gaseous helium is currently selling at somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 per MCF. So you can only imagine what liquid would be worth if you can actually get it. So when our plant turns on, we will be one of two helium liquefiers on the planet. It's mind-boggling.
Which one is the other one?
Exxon.
Oh, Exxon. So, and obviously there's always going to be a demand for helium because we need it in medical equipment, we need it even in the party balloons, but also in semiconductors making. So
what's interesting for your listeners, and it took me a while to appreciate this. So obviously everyone's concerned about the let's call it the geopolitical risk associated with all of the semiconductors, A, coming from one jurisdiction, and B, it coming from Taiwan. I think we all know, we can see the writings on the wall. And so a lot of people have suggested that the semiconductors need to diversify and they need to create new manufacturing hubs outside of Taiwan, with the result that you've had a lot of people establishing operations in Texas, in wherever. Now, the point is that you can't make these chips without two critical gases, neon and helium. Now, 50% of the world's neon comes from Russia. That stopped. There is no more neon. So that's caused a major supply chain issue on semiconductors. The second is helium. Now, the problem with helium and the way that it gets used in the manufacture, let's say that you have factory A, and factory A produces 100 chips and it uses 1 ton of helium a day. You now have factory A and you have factory B. And factory A will produce 50 chips instead of 100, and factory B will produce 50 chips. So you've got two factories producing the 100 chips. You don't split your helium 500 kilos, 500 kilos. You need 1 ton, 1 ton. So you've doubled your helium consumption. You don't use the helium in the chip, you use it in the manufacturing process. And your factory has been established to absorb a certain amount of helium in the manufacturing process. So the establishment of all of these new semiconductor manufacturing plants has inadvertently led to a massive run on demand, more than anyone had ever predicted. And so as a result, you've got all of this demand pressure, demanding as much helium as they can get in order to satisfy semiconductor manufacturing. So if the next time you buy a car and your car has limited functionality, or you can't get the model of car that you want because they didn't have the chips, it's because you use too many bloody helium balloons.
Yes. So essentially, helium is also a play on, the technology, because, semiconductors are in everything, in our phones, in our laptops, in our cameras, in our cars. So it's
in your blender.
Yeah, and I mean, there's already the shortage because the demand is so high, and yeah, there's a lot of
Let
things.
me paint it to you another way. If you had to fill a helium balloon for a party, and I know everyone's going to say, well, I bought a helium balloon last week and it was 20 Rand, 25 Rand, whatever the case may be. The fact is that we buy our helium 3 months in advance. So none of the helium that you're using here in South Africa right now actually has any impact of all of these plants going down. If you took what they are paying in Texas right now for helium and you translated that to fill up a balloon, it's 600 Rand a balloon. Let that sink in.
It's going to be an expensive parties. And
Bugger the moment in Shandong. I'll have 2 helium balloons, please. Woo!
So just one last question. Organon, what are the short-term updates on progress or expected times of releases, or any information you can give the listeners?
There is a Telegram group, and the Telegram group is run by Craig and Nicola and Richard and the team, and they are putting out constant updates. We're listing this month. But yeah, they've had some massively exciting developments. Obviously, on the back of everything going down, there's been a flurry for tokens. So that's gotten very, very interesting. But suffice it to say, there's really good progress over there, and I'd urge people sooner rather than later. But this month will be a big release on the token side.
Okay, awesome news. Yeah. Well done again. It's exciting news for Renergen. We'll definitely keep updating our user base and follow you further. Good luck with all of the operations, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks very much for interviewing me. Cheers.
Cheers.